Hey, this is Joe Gilder from Home Studio Corner. Got a quick mixing tip for you, and this is one you've probably heard before, but if you're anything like me, you don't use it because you're stubborn. So I did a mix last week for a client, and I was having a little bit of a problem finding that right level for the lead vocal. This is a really common problem for me, and I think it's fairly common for singers in general because I like to hear my voice really loud in the mix when I'm recording, or if I'm performing live and have in-ear monitors, my vocals cranked in that in-ear mix. Problem is, I get used to that sound, and I end up wanting that sound out of my regular mixes when I'm mixing a song, especially if I happen to be the vocalist. But really, any vocals, my default mode is to make the vocals just too loud, and then I have to kind of force myself to compensate and bring them down. But then you start to think, man, where do I put the vocal? I kind of have lost all perspective. I don't want it too loud, but I certainly don't want it too quiet. Where's that, happy medium in the middle? Well, here's a very simple tip that I used last week that really helped me kind of cement in my head, yes, that's the correct vocal level. Now, I'm not talking about, this is kind of towards the end of the mix. Once you've got your EQ and compression in place, you've got your vocal tone, you're just looking for the overall level of the vocal. And the magic ingredient, turn your volume down. Not just on your vocal, on your entire mix. So if you're listening at hopefully not a crazy loud volume to do your normal mixing, but when you're starting to set the vocals, the level for the vocals, or you just suspect that they're not quite right, bring your volume way down, like down to where you can still hear the drums and the bass and the main instruments and the vocal, but it's not very loud. Something like this. Here's the mix. I'll pull it down to the level I would use for this.
Who don't see women as things that they can use.
That's about the level that I would go. And now I'm listening to the vocal in relation to everything else. For some reason, at that lower volume, it becomes more obvious if the vocal is too loud. So for example, this is kind of where my kind of default vocal volume is if left unchecked. Here it is at full volume.
Who don't see women as things that they can use.
Even now, I'm doing a video and I just said that's too loud, but a part of my brain goes, that's just right, you narcissist. Because that's how I want my vocal to sound in my headphone mix when I'm singing, so I can hear it and I don't go off pitch. Not great for the mix. Let's pull the volume down and see if we can catch that a little better, because for some reason at full volume I don't notice that it's too loud as much.
Who don't see women as things that they can use.
So if you listen to the kick and the snare, for example, listen to those levels. You can hear the kick, boom, ka, boom, ka. They're quiet, obviously, but they're kind of the markers for everything else in the mix. Okay, the vocal, to me, the consonant sounds of the vocal should be roughly in line with the volume of the kick and especially the snare. But when we listen to the vocal at this level, listen to how loud it sounds. It's drowning out the kick and the snare. It's too loud. So we're going to bring it down to a level where it seems to jive with the kick and the snare. I can still hear the vocal, but it's not, like right now the vocal is super clear, which is weird because everything else is low enough where it's not super clear, which gives me kind of a red flag to know that it's just too loud.
Who don't see women as things that they can use. Who wield their power to protect and not abuse.
So that line, wield their power to protect, because of the compression that I have on the vocal, as we can hear here.
Wield their power to protect.
We can hear those consonants coming through there. And if we go back to the lower volume and compare the level of those C's and T's to the level of the snare, roughly the same volume. Now, obviously, that's not going to work on every vocalist and every vocal mix. But if you've got a vocal tone that you're happy with and you just suspect it might be too loud or perhaps too quiet, do this. Just turn everything down and bring your fader down and readjust the vocal volume, and you'll find, there is a sweet spot there. And if it works down at that lower volume, listen to what happens when you bring it back up.
To protect and not abuse.
That vocal is sitting right on top of the mix. It's hanging out with the kick and the snare. It's not being drowned out by them, and it's also not drowning out the kick and the snare. So for this style of music especially, that works really well. Okay, that is my super stupid simple mixing tip for today. But if you've not tried it before and you struggle with the level of your lead vocals, try it on your next mix. Come back, leave a comment, let us know if it worked. Or if it didn't work, that's fine too. I'd love to hear any feedback. Seriously. If you like this and you like the way that I teach, you would love my 5-step mix guide. You can go check that out at 5stepmix.com. Absolutely free. Just punch your email in and I will send it to you post haste. All right, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Heart of stone to melt away, to show me how to give my life.